Hi everyone, my name is Lloyd Summers. I'm one of the founders of Red Iron Labs and the founder of File Archive Haven. So today we're going to take a look at the PBR Materials Outdoor Pack. We'll walk through the asset, everything that's included. You'll get an idea of whether or not this is a good fit for your workflow and hopefully whether or not these materials are of interest to you. So before we get started, what is the package? Well, it's right now 243 PBR materials. They're all 2048 by 2048, so 2K textures. And what a PBR material is physically based rendering. So PBR materials have this nice effect where if you look, you can see that the reflections change depending on the texture, as well as the height mapping and all of this stuff. So all of these are spheres, but they look like there's texture and feeling to them. The materials are seamless, so if you copy pasted the objects beside each other, they would blend in nicely, and we'll get more into that later. Now, a PBR material pack means it's got these types of textures. You may notice that the metallic textures are missing, and that's by design. The reason this is missing is in Unity 5.4 and earlier, if there is a setting under metallic, what happens is you can't adjust the metal variance. So if I was to pick a metal here, for example, I like metal 3. Beat up, dingy bit of a metal. And if I had a metallic thing here, you would never be able to change this shine. By removing that one map, we're able to allow you to slide it so that this looks more now like a painted metal than it does an actual metal. So you can customize the way the metals look for what you need. This material pack is intended to be a prototyping pack, so something you can use and adjust as you see fit. So for example, you might want a red plastic or a blue plastic, and so you can create copies of these and go through and kind of make the material the way you want. That's kind of a high level view of the materials. Now, one question some people may have is what format are the files and why are they in that format? So our textures, if we take a look in Explorer, are in JPEG format. So each one of these is your set of textures for your material. And we chose JPEG because of the file size. So originally we started with targas, which are a way of not compressing image data. It's just one format of many. But the problem is, instead of it being, this one has very little detail in it, so it's only 65 kilobytes. If we were in Targa format, this would be still 16 megabytes. And Targa version of this asset pack, which you can get if you need, just contact us, is about 22 gigabytes big, whereas this one's only 1.5 gigabytes big. As we start getting more material packs down the road, you can imagine with 10 material packs, 22 gigs times 10, that starts adding up a lot. So we've stuck to JPEG. The other thing is the Unity Asset Store has a limit of 4 gigs per package, and we're already at 1.5 gigs. And we wanted some room to add materials. As you play with this and you find materials and you think some are missing, send us a message so that we can add to them. And this gives us lots of wiggle room so we can keep adding to this asset pack as we go. When we first started getting into development, PBR was brand new, and getting a hold of high quality textures was really challenging for us. We started with a really big pack. I mean, 243 materials is a lot. It really gives you an opportunity to prototype the way you want and to create interesting looking stuff really easily. And the reason we went for the 2048 by 2048 is you want it, especially in this day of VR, and we do a lot of VR development, you want this texture to be nice and high quality. So that somebody who's on an HTC Vive who gets really close to your ground in your prototype, it looks and feels as realistic as possible. We wanted to make sure that all of our PBR materials were nice and high quality, and so that's why the 2048. At the end of the video, I'll show you how you can override that. So if you're working on a project that you want slim, like let's say an Android package, how you can change the package textures to be a little bit lighter, and we'll get into that at the end. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start running through here and seeing what's included and see if this is a good fit for you. So when you first install it, you'll get the Mega PBR Outdoor Materials folder, and in there's a PDF. The PDF is for people who like print materials. Maybe you want to share this with somebody on your team or a friend who can pick out what tiles and colors and textures they want everything with. So these printouts make it really easy to have a handy way of knowing what's sitting inside of this package. In here as well are some frequently asked questions. You'll also find some questions to things like, why are some of the textures gray? And it's because if it's a gray texture, it's easier for you as a user to color these textures the way you want. So you'd be able to create a clone of this material and color it how you see fit. In terms of the folder structure, you'll see 4 folders. We do include Unity standard assets, effects, images. Only thing in here really is Bloom. We didn't want to put too much in here. If you go to import this package and it complains that you already have standard assets, don't import ours. Just ignore it and use your built-in standard assets. You want to make sure that your standard assets are up to date for your version of Unity. These PBR materials should be good all the way from Unity 4.6 to 5.5. So that's my blurb about the standard assets pack. Under content, you'll see these are all the things we use for our demo scenes. This is the stuff you probably don't care about for most of what you're doing, unless you're actually starting to play with our demos. And we'll go through these afterwards. The demos are the different scenes that walk you through the package and show you what's there, and we'll go through those in a minute. And the reason I'm delaying those two is this is the pack most people care about. So the materials pack, if you go into here and pick asphalt, for example, it will let you go through and see all of the asphalt materials and see what they look like. Going through a lot of these by hand can be tedious. So we have these little prefabs sitting at the top that make it a little bit easier for you to work with what's in there. And in fact, the way these prefabs work is you can add them in, double click, and now right inside my scene I have full view over those. So if I wanted to, I could drag this into a scene I'm working on, use that to help me pick materials as I'm going across, and when I'm done, just take the prefab back out. So it's just a quicker way of kind of being able to pick and iterate through materials as you're building your scene out. Because I don't know if you're like me, but a lot of times when I'm working on a scene, I like to have 2 or 3 or 4 different types of wood or concrete just to texture and kind of color things up a little bit so they look a little unique. And these prefab stacks are meant to do just that. So you could pick, you know, drag that in there, and then you have it as a reference as you're working on your scene. The materials themselves, like I said, these are, we try to keep a lot of them in kind of a white effect so that you could texture this closer to your house. So, you know, a house probably has a blue carpet, so you can give it that blue tinge. If you're going down that path, my advice is to pick the material. On Windows, press Control D. On Mac, you're on your own. And create a copy. Then you can pick your color. And as a house is probably going to have kind of a bluish type of carpet. There you go. Maybe a bit brighter. Something like that. So now you have the white clean prefab, and then you've got your customized blue one, and you could make them however you see fit. That's why you'll see that a lot of these look kind of washed out, but there's a purpose to that, which is, you know, you could texture this paper and this thing the way you want. Some things we've kept color on just because the texturing and the color looks so great that to wipe it out. For example, take a look at this one. It's got a little bit of green in that brown. So if we were to make it one color, you wouldn't be able to get that nice distinction. So if you need to and you wanted to change that, you could grayscale it. But that's a different conversation for a different day. Let's continue walking through the package and see what else we got. So those are all the materials, and each one of these has a textures folder. So here's where you could see the image. So for example, remember how I said you might want to grayscale something? The image you'd want to grayscale is the diffuse. So if we took this into Photoshop or GIMP, switch it to grayscale, save it, you could come back and then you could color it the way you want. That being said, most of these you shouldn't have to. Like I said, they usually have kind of a gray look so that you can color it as you need. So that's the materials pack. So as you go through, just be aware that these materials are all here. The reason this has an underscore is so if I go in here and type underscore, or it'll give me just the presets, the prefabs. Yeah, or you'll see that this is plural, so you could just type crates, and these will be all the prefabs for the crates. So as you're working on a project, you can pull those in really quickly and take a look. So that's what the material packs and the prefabs for me are used for. But sometimes you need more than that. Sometimes you just want to like kind of take a look at something in a more active way. And that's what our demo scenes are for. So in our demo scenes, you'll see there are really two types. There's two demos, and then there's three sets where the material packs are. So let's walk through the material packs first. The scene we have loaded right now is material field. This is just a bunch of the materials sitting flat. One set is the crate, one set is the sphere, and one set is just a square. Now, for those of you who follow me online, you may have seen me mention that we had a problem with Unity where it deleted a bunch of files the other day, and we lost some of our demo scenes. So these have all been recreated. And the demo scenes that we lost had light bulbs. And I thought, you know, those light bulbs are kind of plain. So when we recreated the scene, I included this guy, which is a nice little freebie. And he's made entirely from our PBR material pack. So if you look at him, he's made from metal 15. This little rim, the copper one, that's metal 1. If you take a look at this PBR light, click on that and follow the textures, you'll see that his light is actually plastic 5 with a color on it. But I wanted him to be here so that if you haven't really done a lot of material stuff in the past, you could see what we did for a light, so that you could come in here and say, oh, there's an emission value. You can't see it right now, but if we were to kill all of the lighting in here, he would still glow because he's got an emission on him. And but I wanted to keep that there so you had access to at least one kind of material that looks like a light type effect. So this is the scene. If we were to hit play or Control P, you'll see how he's going. He's so cute. So I was really happy about, you know, that we lost the scenes, because it gave me a chance to come back and create those little watcher guys, which I think are just the coolest thing ever. And he's free. You can do whatever you want with him. I really don't care. I didn't spend that much time building him, but he's just a really cool little guy. So the material field is just that. It's a field of materials that lets you take a view over top and see what's included. Where's the demo scenes? Let me minimize some of that stuff so it's a little easier. So that's the material field. There is also material cycle. If I click on that one, double click on, let's say, the camera stack. So you can see the way this scene is set up. It's going to be two guys spinning around. The crate's in the background, and it's just going to cycle through and show you all of the different materials in this package. So there's asphalt, brick, carpet, that one's mislabeled, fabric, food, and so on. So it'll just walk through and give you this kind of view, and these guys will spin around and shine a little bit of light so you can see some reflections as it's doing that. There's also the PBR material stack. Now as we come through, if you see this, that's okay. That means that the lighting hasn't been built for this, and that's because we've disabled auto build for lighting for these scenes. And the reason being, with this many textures and materials and reflection probes, it takes a long time to build. So if you see it black and you want to get a better idea of what's going on, hit window, lighting, and build. Now it's important to mention that lighting and the way Unity works with lighting is this stuff changes depending on your version of Unity. So if I do a lighting build in Unity 5.1, for example, and you have 4.6 or 5.5, the chances of this lighting data getting corrupted and needing to be rebuilt is really, really high. And so after I've hit build, you'll see was doing a little bit of work down here. It's done. And that's it. So that's how we would rebuild the lighting for your version of Unity. I disable that auto build just so it doesn't constantly rebuild. And if you go to make your game, you don't want your game build project to be going through and rebuilding the lighting on a whole bunch of demo scenes as well. That would just be terrible. So if we hit Control P to play, we can take a look. So here's the asphalt, brick, carpet, the misspelt concrete, fabric, food, grass, ground, and all of that fun stuff. So really it's just another way of kind of flipping through Matrix style weapons on a rack type look so that you can get an idea. And the reason for the play, you don't even have to sit in the scene view or in the game view. It's more so that you can see how lighting will impact some of these if you really want to take a closer look at lighting in the scene. So that's pretty much it for the stacked. We don't really want to go too much further into detail there. Now, the next two scenes are demo scenes. These are live scenes that we created just to give you an idea of what you could do with the material pack. So before we jump into that, it's good to know what our content is. So included content, this is stuff that's only used internally by Mega PBR, but you are free to use as you see fit. There's the cookies, which is the little bit of light that comes out of this guy down here. You can't really see it very well, but he's using that as a light cookie. And so if I pick him, expand him down, go to his light, and I make it really bright. Still not good enough. You can kind of see where that cookie effect comes in. And the thought being, if you look at his mask, he's got that little garter in front of his face, and that would split the light, and that's what the cookie does. So it's just something included for the fun of it. This is a tiny pixel that we created ages ago, and you can see it here. So it's just a little pixel font. This is the smallest possible font, I think, pretty much anywhere. I made this myself to get a font as tiny as I could for some mobile devices, and you're free to use this for anything you want in your packages or whatever. Same with the cookies. Anything that says PBR, you're free to use as you see fit. Same with the crates. These are just the raw models. Use them wherever they fit. Just have fun with it. Our goal with this is to give you stuff to prototype and build with, and we don't want to restrict you. We want you to have fun and do what you want. The PBR floor is a huge floor, much like a, what do you call that, a plane? The difference is it's a whole bunch of planes, and the planes overlap, so if you drag a material on here, it will automatically tile it all the way across to create a bigger thing. The terrain is the same thing, it just gives you a bit of a terrain looking type of material to play with, and then the light bulb. This is more interesting though in the prefabs, because we have prefabs for all of these. So here's a floor set which takes that flat floor I mentioned earlier and splits it up into a bunch just to give you something you can drag and drop as you go. Same with the terrain. So if we wanted to pick this, so that gives you just kind of a terrain you can play with, and you can texture it with whatever you want. In this case, it looks dirt, has a dirt effect. Remember what I said about being able to get nice and close in VR? That's what this material is good for. Like, if you look at that, if you're in virtual reality, that looks like real dirt and has a nice, great texture and quality to it. So those are the prefabs that come with it. There is the crate as well, which I just love that crate. It's cool, but not as much as the little light bulb guy. He's awesome. There's a sound effect, the PBR motor. He's what the little light bulbs sound like. The skybox texture, however, we got from another company, and I've included information here on how to get to it. Basically, it's from alabsoft.com/skyboxes. It's a great set. I highly recommend getting it. It isn't going to be a high quality set. It's, I think, only a 1K texture set, so there's a little bit of edging around the outsides. But for something like this little asset pack, it was just such a nice looking texture set to be able to work with. And these guys did a bang up job, and they have a whole series of textures, and they're great to kind of work with. And this texture set from them is free, by the way. So big thank you to them for that. And then the last thing was scripts. So in here, we've got 4 scripts that we use. They're in their own Mega PBR namespace. LookAt, if you take a look in here, so you see how he's looking at something as he's flying, and same with him. There's some lookup scripts. Actually, he's not. Let's pause that, pick him. Add LookAt. And let's make him look at, oop, no. Yeah, okay. I want him to look at the other guy. So if you look, now he's turning around and he's facing him. So the LookAt script is just a way of controlling the way these guys look when they're flying and doing stuff. And you can do this with the camera as well. It doesn't have to be. There is rotate child visibility. Not super important. It just will slowly rotate and enable and disable different children as it goes through the hierarchy. Slow rotation. Just slowly spin something. You'll see this in use in one of the scenes for the fan. And then waypoint follow is what these guys are using right now for patrolling. So if you take a look at him, he's got different waypoints. So there's waypoint 1. Waypoint 2 and waypoint 3. So he's swooping down and then going across. And the way the waypoint script works is you can tell it how many points, and it can be whatever it wants, and how fast you want him to go. So we could slow him right down. So he's this guy. We could make him, see how nice and slow he is right now? Nice and slow. And it won't update the speed, I believe, until it hits the waypoint. So now he's gonna go motoring along. But that's what the waypoint thing is. And you have the choice between slurp and lerp. The difference being it's going to react very differently depending on how you change those. But it's just a waypoint script that you can use to get things to go and do patrolling and things like that. In the scripts, we also had, that's it, just the 4. So that's pretty much it for what's included in the content. Now let's take a look at our last couple demo scenes. So let's take a look at the Voxel demo. This is more of a fake Voxel demo, but oops, there you go. But it gives you an idea of, you know, it's just potentials and stuff that, you know, people could make or build with this if they wanted to. So it shows you what a tree would look like, a mountain. And we made a little script we use in-house that generates this stuff using just the prefabs. We didn't include that script because it's not very robust. And I just don't want to give you guys something that's going to not be well supported. But that's this scene. So again, these are all using those waypoint things. And I've used a more fluid waypoint system in the past that kind of slows things down and things like that. But for the purpose of the video, this one works pretty good. So that's pretty much it for this scene, just to give you an idea. The other scene is the house demo. Now, much like that little flying light bulb guy, the house demo is made entirely from cubes. So if you pick this, you'll see it is a cube. If you pick this wall panel, it's a cube. If you pick this, it's a cube. There's a couple things in here that are spheres. I think he's a sphere. Yeah. If you take a look, he is a sphere. But everything in here is just created using the Unity primitive objects, nothing fancy. But it gives you an idea of just how easy it can be to take, you know, this prefab set. And I think it took me about a half an hour to an hour to build this room. You know, building the legs and things like that takes a little while. But still, if you were in a rush and you needed a prototype, I mean, you could put a VR headset in and play in this room, and it would actually feel like a pretty cool little room. And if we hit play, it'll add that little bit of bloom effect that we like to use. And it gives you that kind of realistic looking room environment. So that's pretty much it. It just gives you a chance to walk through and see different ways you can use the textures and how the textures work out. And this is a good chance to see how that seamlessness that we mentioned works. So for example, all of this stuff is just seamless textures and it looks really cool. And if you're building your own houses or your own house things, just remember the little details matter. So a little metal railing to separate the two floors, because in reality these hold the carpet and prevent it from going into the wood. Having some little edging around the outside, all of that kind of stuff. But anyway, something for you to kind of play with and do whatever you want with. certainly is an option. So earlier I mentioned that there are some more advanced things that you might have questions about, and how to deal with those. So for example, let's say, you know, we are working on a project and we're only building for Google Cardboard. Well, this type of texture is great for HTC Vive. So if somebody actually gets down on their hands and knees and looks at the ground, that looks like a carpet, and it, you know, they'll think it's a carpet. But for something like Google Cardboard, that might be gross overkill, or maybe you're working on a mobile app and it's gross overkill. You have full control over how these textures are being built. So if you picked one texture, for example, you can control in this panel how it gets built for web player, for PC standalone. And we didn't want to dictate this for you because for some phones, a 2K textures might seem like overkill, but it's actually quite doable. But for other phones, depending on what you're building, this may or may not want to be a low texture thing. We kept everything high quality, high texture by default, just because we want to make sure that when you build, your quality is always good. If you need to reduce the quality though, you can pick all of the textures. So Control A on Windows will select everything that's in your view. And in here you can override it for one platform. So I could override BlackBerry and change the size of my texture from a 2K texture down to 512 by 512, for example. So that'll allow you to control your builds and make your build size a little smaller for Android. You can also, in your Edit Project Settings Quality, change the resolution for your texture here. The problem with this though is it's going to still package your texture in full resolution even though you set it to 8th. It'll just display in 8th, so be aware of that. If you wanted to, for example, pick all the materials, this will only work when you have only this package open, otherwise you'll get all the materials in your whole product. But you can type a little lowercase t, a colon, and then type material. And here you can see all the materials. Or you can type T colon texture, and now you can pick all of the textures. You can also, like I said, use an underscore or use, so underscore asphalt would give me my 3 prefab stacks for asphalt, or I could type crates and that'll get me all of my crate prefabs, or cubes, and so on and so forth. So if I was working in this, actually, you know, let's take a quick look at a real situation here. So let's go to our demo Voxel. Let's say we're creating a Voxel-like game for whatever purpose. Maybe we got little bunnies hopping around and playing and that kind of thing. So this is all good. But I want to now add some more mountainy stuff. So I'm going to go to, I could either go down here and look for the prefab, or type underscore stone, take the cubes, bring it in here. If you hold control, things will snap. So there we go, we've now got that. I have 2 choices. I could clone these. Control D, Control C, Control V, Control C, Control V. And I'm just holding Control so that I can copy paste this stuff as I go along. Take all of those, drag them underneath something else, and I'm happy, I'm done. Get rid of my prefab. So now I've got another object that kind of can hover in the air. It just happens to defy gravity. But the point being, it gives you an idea of how you can quickly use some of this stuff to build some prefabs as you go out. So with that said, I think that we have exhaustively gone through the package. I think by now you should have a really good idea of everything that's included and why it's included and where it is and what it does. But if you have any questions, let us know. And as always, if you get this material pack and you have questions on how to get new materials added, just send us a message. We don't mind adding materials. Adding materials for us is a lot easier than it is for an indie developer who doesn't have access to the tools that we use for this kind of stuff. So that's it for me. I want to say thanks for stopping to check out this package. Anybody who buys this, the money's going towards game development and hiring developers and continuing to grow our companies and get more games out there. So I just want to say thanks for everything, and we hope you use the package and we hope you love it. Thanks, and have a good one.